Hi, everybody, and welcome to Orthodoxy Questions and Answers. Well, for the next 4 weeks, we're going to have some pre-recorded sessions because either Demos is away on leave or I am with Presbytera. Now, what we've done is we've asked you to submit your questions, and you did just that. We've got them in emails. We got them on Facebook. We got them from a couple of different sources. So that's what we're going to do over the next 4 weeks is we're going to go ahead and answer those questions. Now, we'll be back at the beginning of August with our regular live show, so stay tuned for that. And Demos, I think we're ready for the first question.
Well, my first question is, what is the St. George icon doing up here?
What is the St. George icon doing up here? Because we've already passed the feast day of St. George, but on a regular basis, I receive icons in from the children of parents who have passed away, and they're not sure what to do with all of the icons that they have. They'll save a few, but this one in particular came to me, and it reminded me of the icons that I grew up with in our home. And if you remember our video that we did about the different styles of icons, this is classic Greek American iconography. It has the elements of traditional icons that were more Catholic in nature, where the body's a little bit more fuller, but it also represents then some Orthodox components. So this is the kind of icons that you're going to see in American churches that were built in the 20s and the 30s, and it just makes me feel, reminds me of growing up and being at home. So nothing special about St. George. I mean, St. George is one of the great saints, but this particular icon, it was just, it was given to me, and it just made me feel homey, and I wanted to put it up there.
Well, I have a question that a lot of people might have about the story of St. George. I mean, going by the icon, yes, he's fighting a small dragon, but, you know, based on the icon and based on the story, the dragon can be any size. And this one, he appears to be a fire-breathing dragon. So what is the Orthodox take on that? Do we actually believe in fire, like real-life fire-breathing dragons?
No, that's not the case. I mean, we do have a lot of like really big, like the Komodo dragons and stuff like that. So we do have that. But in this case, this is much more symbolic, representing now Saint George attacking or destroying then those demonic forces. So we have more symbology here than we actually have Saint George, let's say, defeating a dragon. But we do have some dragons, and we have Nessie, right?
Oh, yeah, from Loch Ness?
From Loch Ness, yes. So,
well, according to some creationists, the evidence, quote unquote, of Nessie is how man and dinosaur
live together. Right. So,
all right. So the first question that we have submitted is from Jack Sage Phoenix, a regular. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
It's a long one. I have a question I would like to see addressed. There has been a growing problem with overt white supremacy in the United States recently. Mm-hmm. And it is known that some of them are coming to Orthodoxy as well as other tradition-oriented faiths, seeing it as a vehicle to support and promote their worldview. This seems to be a problem across most, if not all, branches of Orthodoxy in the United States, ROCOR, OCA, and Greek alike. And Jack shared a few articles. Which,
I've already had a chance to look at, yes.
I am interested in converting to Orthodoxy, in case that wasn't apparent from my participation in the live chats. However, as I am in a mixed marriage with a mixed-raced daughter, I am concerned about this apparently growing trend. I cannot, in good conscience, join, nor ask my wife or child to join, a church where they will not feel safe and welcome. The presence or participation of white supremacists in the congregation is incompatible with such a welcome. Thus, I'm asking if the Orthodox Church has a clear position against white supremacy and white supremacists, and, if so, what measures it's taken to ensure that members of the disadvantaged communities are not threatened by such individuals. Thank you.
So, absolutely great question. And what it shows is that if you're going to come forward, then you have to be prepared for the consequences. Orthodoxy, come on, let's admit it, has skulked around the shadows for many, many years, okay? Especially here in the United States. We have not had the presence that the Catholic Church has had, and certainly because the Catholic Church has done that, they've faced many, many backlashes and consequences, things like that. Well, the Orthodox Church now is coming out, and they're making themselves known on this program, on other programs, Ancient Faith Radio. So Orthodoxy now has come into the limelight, and they have attracted positive attention, and they have attracted negative attention. But that's just the nature of the beast, so to speak, all right?
Or the dragon.
Or the dragon, exactly right. So there are always going to be, in every faith expression, there's going to be radical elements, okay? That is the nature of people, is that there is always a radical arm to that, okay? Most of them are moderate, but there is a radical arm. When looking at those articles, those two individuals, the one young man and his father-in-law.
Could you, real quick, just explain what those are for the audience's sake? Just brief recap.
Okay, so what the article was is this young man. Do I name the young man?
No. Just brief.
Okay,
brief, yeah.
This young man has been a leader of one of the white supremacist groups that exist in America. And he found what he thought was a kindred spirit in some of the more radical elements of Orthodoxy. And so he attended that church, and he found support there through an excommunicated priest, a radical priest, who then was in concert to some extent with his views. Now, this young man also went to some more moderate Orthodox churches, and his rhetoric then became problematic, and it caused for the disorder of the parish. And so the parish priest excommunicated him. This young man took it to the bishop, Bishop Savas. Bishop Savas, now of the Pittsburgh Diocese, then wrote a letter in response and said, "We will not and cannot tolerate this viewpoint in our church," and supported the priest for what he did. But like I said, this young man and his father-in-law went and then found this radical arm of Orthodoxy and found a little bit of support there. All right. So what I don't want you to feel is that Orthodoxy, the mainstream Orthodoxy, is going down this road. The only thing is that we are calling ourselves, and we truly are, the true church, but we are a traditionalist church. And people will pervert that and say that traditionalism in America means then white supremacy. And we absolutely cannot have that connection. Right. So in this case, that person was expelled from the church, but found another element. So for the situation that you're in, this is not a problem, because you will find the vast majority of churches, the priests there will not tolerate this kind of behavior. Now, the letter that this young man wrote, and his father-in-law wrote a supporting letter to that, is said, "The church can't deny me. I have the right to be in the church." Very, very American idea, American thinking. Okay. But what he did not recognize was that as a priest, I have the right to remove anybody who causes disorder in the church and does not promote the unity of that particular parish. And so in one sense, he is right. The church cannot remove that person just because they have a view. But when they create disorder in the parish and create controversy, then the priest has the right to remove that person. This is clearly scriptural. In Scripture, it clearly says that if they do not now align with the views that you have, then you can admonish them. And if they refuse to listen to that admonishment, meaning that they stick with their position of white extremism or white extremism, or any extremism for that matter, okay, then they have to leave. Okay, so in that sense, I wouldn't be worried about mainstream orthodoxy. You're going to recognize radical orthodoxy when you see it, just as you would recognize radicalism in any other religious expression.
Actually, we have a question. I'm going to jump ahead because we have one question specifically about this from Alexis, who says, I have never felt comfortable going to a Greek church, as they say. It always feels like I'm alone and getting judged by old ladies and others. No one speaks to me, and I can tell that I am the subject of gossip and whispers. This is my faith, so what do I do? Every time I try to make friendly contact, they talk to me in Greek and laugh. I don't speak Greek. I didn't think that was necessary. Please help. P.S. I feel welcome with you.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And I'm glad you called in with that. And I got to be honest with you. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. Yes, okay, more than likely they are talking about you, all right? But where that comes from is the fact that those older ladies, if they don't know anything about you, they will make something up about you, right, Demos? Right? We don't need facts, right? Greeks, we don't need facts. We'll make up our own facts. In fact, they did that to you also, right?
I mean, I'm not gonna disagree with them when they talk about how devilishly handsome I am.
Well, of course, yes.
I mean, okay, All
right, but again, they had all kinds of conceptions about where you came from and who you were and everything like that. So. My
name is Demosthenes. How much more Greek can you get?
No. Well, they heard Euclid, and they're like, what kind of name is Euclid?
Euclides, the geometry, ancient Greece.
I know.
It's like naming your child Aristotle Plato. How much more Greek can you get?
Yeah, but they wanted that as a first name, not as a last name.
Oh, okay.
See, if you would have come in and said, my name is Euclid, they would have said, okay. Yeah. All right. But seriously, to get to the point, there has to be a two-way street here, okay? I've got to be honest here. Those people, and I've got quite a bit of experience with this, those people who have come into our church and have waited for the community to approach them, there are very, very few Greek Orthodox churches that are accepting in that nature. That's just who we are. All right, for right now. I'm not saying it's right, but that's who we are for right now. So what it requires is those people to be a little bit forward, to kind of just get into the mix, to go to a table and sit down and just, pick somebody that seems to make eye contact with you, take your tray of food or your baklava or whatever you've got in your hand and sit down and say, I'm new here. My name is, Alexis. My name is Alexis, and I'm just kind of seeing what this church is like. Trust me, they will speak to you, but they're not inviting in the sense of, hey, young lady, eladok uklamu, and come and sit down. That's really not who we are yet. Okay. Secondly, go to the priest and say, hey, Father, I'm 25 or I'm 35 or I'm 45, and I'm just looking for people that are in my age group. Trust me, that's what the priest does. The priest knows his parish. He's going to tell you, and I've done it with you, right? Yeah. I've introduced you, the other gentleman that we've got who came from the Netherlands, right? And I introduced him to a couple of people. So it's the priest can take you into coffee hour. He knows, he can talk to you a little bit about who you are. He'll walk you right into coffee hour and he'll say, hey, Demos, Dionysia, this is Alexis, and she is from X. And they go, oh, okay, why don't you sit down, talk with them a little while. So that's a second thing that you can do. And then probably a third thing that you can do is whenever they have an event, whatever that event is, Greek festival, Greek dance, fish fry, you put your name on the list and you say, I want to volunteer, because that's really where you get to know people. When you're working side by side, shoulder to shoulder with somebody, that's when you can start that discussion. Hey, where are you from? I'm from Washington. Oh, I've got a cousin who lives in Washington. Church is kind of hard, but when you get into those other kind of activities that we do and you push yourself in there and you volunteer, trust me, you will start to develop friends. So those are three things I can tell you right now.
And actually, along these same lines, we have a question from Bibi from YouTube. I went to a Russian Orthodox church, and they asked how Russian I am. Easy to feel like an outsider, especially when it is all in Russian. Well, we can't speak to the Russian part, but we can speak to the Greek part because this is kind of in line with what we've been talking about.
Well, I'll do even better than that.
You'll do it in Russian.
No. We'll do it in Gallic. All right?
Really?
All right. So you are exactly speaking about what Presbytera Terry has experienced. All right. So for the vast majority of our marriage, she has been oppressed by my Greekness. All the food is Greek, my parents are Greek, the church is Greek, everything, the events are Greek, you know.
The video guy.
The video guy is Greek, you know.
Aristotle, Plato, that guy.
So she's had that for 25 years, okay? And around the 25, 26 year mark, as she got older, she said, you know what, I'm done, okay? Because I have a heritage too, and I want to express that. So she was silent for those years. But later on, when people were talking about, oh, well, you know, so where are you going on vacation this year? And she would say, we're going to Scotland. And then they would say things like, "Γιατί πας εκεί στη Σκωτία, γιατί δεν πας στην Ελλάδα? Why are you going to Scotland when you can go to Greece?" And Terry would come back and say, because Scotland is more beautiful. So her pride in her country. Now, of course, she got all the looks from the ladies, but she didn't care. You know, because she is proud of her heritage. So what she finally did was she came out and said, here is what we do. So when she shows up to an event, she has her kilt on. Okay. She has her favorite whiskey that she likes. She teaches about oh, good grief. I can't believe
Apparently you haven't learned.
The quaich. She teaches about the quaich, about what is the Scottish sign of hospitality. So, and what she found was they slowly started to become interested in what was that all about, because the Greeks found a commonality with the Scots from their history and everything like that, and that started that discussion. So what I'm saying is, you're not Russian, okay, but you are in an environment that is Russian. Whoever you are, be proud of that and show off who you are and say, I know about that, but how about this? This is our culture, and this is what we do. And that's become very popular now, is to be able to embrace our heritage and our culture, especially with the DNA test and 123andMe and all of those, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and that was the lesson, is that she finally said, I am proud of who I am, and I make no excuses for it, and I'm going to then push back.
But it's also important because she had give and take. She experienced your culture.
Yes.
But she still represented her own culture.
Right.
I wouldn't advise going into a Greek church for the first time and telling them how much more beautiful France is or something.
Yes. Okay. Right. Yes.
But I will. You know, I will not be one to disagree with Presbytera, but I will ask one question: which beaches would you rather swim in?
Well, temperature-wise, there's no doubt that it would have to be Greece, okay? But, you know, bikini-clad old people in Scotland are just as bad looking as they are in Greece, okay?
Do they have kilt versions of bathing suits?
Not that I have seen. Okay, so
that should be a thing.
That should be a thing,
yes,
right?
Well, we'll talk to Presbytera, and she'll speak to her people, and we'll make something happen.
Well, and I mean, when we, in all of our travels to Scotland, we have discovered at least 500 different styles of whiskey. How many different styles of ouzo are there? 7? There's 1 star to 7 star, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe there's a 12 star too. All right. Okay, so fine. There's 12. 500 different types of single malt flavors. I mean, come on. You got to love a country like that.
So that's where we're going. That's why you're going to Scotland, so you can get whiskey of the week for 500 weeks.
For 500 weeks,
yeah,
that's right.
There we go. All right. Well, in the same line.
Wow, we've got really a theme here going.
We have a theme. We're going for it. Speaking of travel, do you have any future plans for the Tartan Priest series? You're welcome to join us in Alaska, says Panayoti.
Well, okay. I got to be honest here. I'm not the idea guy, so I'm going to turn that over to Euclid, to Euclid, because I'm telling you what, everything. I'm serious. Everything that we have done has been Demos's idea, and then we've talked about it and we've shaped it and solidified it into something. But I really haven't come. All I wanted to do was live stream, and I thought I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what that meant. And so he has formed that. I mean, he created the Tartan Priest. So where are we going with that?
We're planning on expanding Tartan Priest beyond just the Northeast. There's going to be some European travel this year. I would love to go to Alaska.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, because I know Terry would love to go too. So
the whole goal is we want to go and visit unique places. We're not going to do a Tartan Priest from the Statue of Liberty. We want to do it from like one of my favorite things that we did on the show was finding that auto art at the side of the road. This vehicles turned into insects and all this very, very
rocket
creative,
ships and
creative, the very first one that we did.
Well, if they let us do it, I would like to film at one of the most beautiful Greek Orthodox Orthodox monasteries, St. Anthony's in. I was going to say Arizona. It's not Arizona, but out west.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous, gorgeous monastery.
And there's a church I'm going to talk about later in this show because I saw the questions already.
Yeah.
That has some unique features, and visiting that location has been on the docket since day one. But Father, thank you so much. But I can provide the technology and the ideas, but you provide the personality and the communication. It's a good combination.
Hey, I'm just the good-looking front man.
All right. Well, since we were just talking about that, we have a question from Alex H from YouTube, who says that he is originally from the War Dog Memorial area.
Yeah. Okay.
And they had visited that cemetery, and they would like to add that it is moving. Hearing the story of the bravery from the K9 soldiers. Thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you.
But why are you the Tartan Priest?
Well, actually, we just talked about that. Terry has, years ago, and again, I've got to say that it came out because of Greek oppression. Let's say it some other way. The overbearance of Greekness, can become a little bit suffocating. And so when she started to explore her heritage, she found, this very, very strong connection with Scotland, to the point that her family, going back to the 1600s, had owned a particular castle. That Galbraith family owned this particular castle, and it is one of the few extant castles that still exists and operates even unto today. So, to know and to be able to trace that back, that's a wonderful heritage. And then she got involved with the St. Andrew's Society in Detroit, one of the largest Scottish American societies in the United States. And so we became very involved in that. And through that, we started going to Scottish festivals and started learning about that heritage, and found this unique harmonization between our two cultures. The Greeks are very proud. The Scots are extremely proud. We are very, very proud of our culture and our heritage. That culture and heritage was taken away from us, one by the English, and then on our side by the Ottomans. So we shared that. We've had we've been cast out of our own countries, the land clearances, and certainly then under the Ottoman Empire, when we were kicked out of many of us were kicked out of Greece. So we had that shared heritage, which was really beautiful, and so that just progressed, and then I started to recognize my interest in her side of the family, and so. About 5 years ago, when we were staying in Scotland, we went into the city in Edinburgh, and there are two there are two kilt makers, two very famous kilt makers, and so she had her. So we ordered and had custom made for us her family tartan in the ancient colors, and then my family tartan. My tartan in the modern colors. And it's kind of interesting because if I marry into the clan, then I am allowed then to wear that. And so we went to these functions with me wearing my kilt and then Terry wearing her kilt. And so we went to many of these functions, and I just claimed at that point that I was just from the very southern tip of Scotland. The very, very southern tip of Scotland.
The warmer part.
The warmer part of Scotland. Great people, very warm, and so that whole culture and that similarity just for me was really fun and was really interesting.
You speak of it as if you're excited to go in 2 weeks or something.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Speaking of travel, question from Dimitri: do you have any Orthodox churches you'd recommend visiting in Greece?
Actually, I do. I do have a few here. So I'm going to start in Thessaloniki because we spent 2 summers there at the monastery of Agiou of Latavon, and we got to stay there. And so my buddy and I, we spent the whole summer. Well, not the whole summer, but most of the summer. Just parked out on one of the cafes and the restaurants on Egnatia Boulevard. And so while we were there, we got to go to St. Constantine and Helen's. And hold up just a second here. We got to go to St. Constantine and Helen's in Thessaloniki. And Thessaloniki is just my absolute favorite city in Greece. I mean, so we just had a blast. We enjoyed it. And that's where we went to church. And it was kind of a funny story there because when I went over there, the bishop of Agiou of Latavon, Bishop Pandelimon, he asked me, he says, do you have a driver's license? And I said, yes, Your Eminence, I do. He says, good. He says, while you are here, you will be my driver, and you will take me around. I says, okay, I'll do that. And so we went around with him to the different churches, and St. Con's was one of them where we went to. And it was just really great just being with the bishop, because when the bishop walked in, he's the metropolitan. Hey, everybody knows him, and me and my buddy got the best food. We were just treated like royalty. So that's one of my best experiences and favorite memories in Greece. My second one would probably be St. Andrew's in Patra. The Cathedral of St. Andrews is absolutely gorgeous. Very large church, but it has the most beautiful wooden polieli chandelier that I have ever seen. I mean, this thing is massive.
Wooden chandelier.
Wooden chandelier. Wow. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Do they have real candles in them, or is it so electric?
I'm trying to remember now if that was candles or not, but I think it was electric. But where most of them are like brass or gold plated or something like that. But this was this massive wooden chandelier. It's absolutely gorgeous. So absolutely go and check that out. Next, I would say go to the island of Zakynthos, and on there you will see Saint Dionysius, Greek, obviously Greek Orthodox Church. The cool thing about that is because Zakynthos kind of went back and forth with Italy, Zakynthos has this very Italian architectural style, and the church looks Italian. And when you go inside, one of the beautiful things about it is that they have the incorruptible body of Saint Dionysius that you can view. Equally so, they have this beautiful mural on the back of the wall. Remember we did the video about how the narthex should be decorated? So they have in Zakynthos at St. Dionysius, they have that painted on the back wall of Christ as the king, but then the river, and it goes all the way down to hell.
I'm sure that's spectacular. It is absolutely gorgeous.
And if you look very closely in the sea, in the sea of hell, the iconographer drew Hitler's picture. So Hitler is in there, is in that picture.
I thought you were going to say Hidden Mickey for a moment.
Yeah, no. He painted him in there. All right. obviously, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Holy Transfiguration on the in the monastery at Madeira. So Madeira is just it's incredible. It's just this moonscape that you'll find nowhere else. Maybe in the Badlands, possibly in the Badlands. Okay, but the heights to which Madeira rises is just gorgeous, and it's James Bond, right?
Yeah, for your eyes only.
Right. So that monastery with the cables that run between the different mountains. But the interesting thing about that particular church there, not just the monastery, but the church there, Holy Transfiguration, is just outside the church. There is an ossuary. And remember, we talked about the lineup of skulls with the numbers on them, right? That is all up there that you can see. And that gives you a great example of what we were talking about this idea of ossuaries, where the monks now preserve each one of the skulls of the monks that have died on the mountain. So that's something incredible to see. And lastly, I would be remiss if I did not talk about my home country in Greece on the island of Chios. And you have to go and you have to see the beautiful church of Hagia Markela. And Markela is the patron saint of Chios. And some of you, I'm sure, know the story of her father then martyring her on the island. And still once a year on her feast day, there's actually where the shore will actually turn red. So go and see Hagia Markela.
What I mentioned before is the church that immediately sprung to mind was Saint Gerasimos on the island of Kefalonia.
Oh, okay.
Particularly because there's a big history there. Particularly there are hidden tunnels underneath the church that you can access through the altar.
Oh.
Where Saint Gerasimos used to escape into the caves below to avoid persecution at the time. And I don't know, it's been 20 years since I last visited, but I'm pretty sure that you can still go visit the church and actually go take a ladder down to the caves underneath the altar. And if that is so a possibility, I would like that to be a future Tartan Priest episode.
That's There's in fact there's I'm trying to remember where it was. We went, and it was this same idea of this cave, but in order to access the rear part of the cave where the monk actually spent time, the diameter of the hole is only this big. So it's a little bit of a frightful thing that if you go in there, some people won't do it because they won't come back out.
It's the same deal. And 20 years ago, I was much thinner and smaller. I could barely make it in. Now but there are parts of the cave that you can access without having to crawl through something. But to get to, and my memory is shot 20 years ago, but if I remember correctly, to get to where Saint Gerasimos used to sleep, you have to actually go through like a very narrow.
We might be talking then about maybe that's what it was, because on the one trip that we went to Kefalonia. So maybe it was that same thing. It's a very small thing to go to the back of it, right? And then it opens up into a big area. Yeah.
I'm sure it's not unique, though. I'm sure there are a lot of Orthodox churches that had escape routes that way. Underneath the altar, that's kind of
cool.
Unique.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, let's go for another couple of questions. And all right, this isn't a question. This is a statement that we got on one of our live streams from a guy named Charles, and I thought that I'd give Father the chance to respond to this. In response to the live stream of our Divine Liturgy, Charles said, "This is boring as all. Get out. Better have another canon get together on how to change it to something more cool, or accept your fate of a slow death."
Well, I guess if you're right. It's been 2,000 years and we're still not dead, so it is a very slow death. Very, very slow.
I would say I have a timer set.
Yeah, yes. Okay. Reminds me, my mom told me about the famous quote from Voltaire when they said, coffee will kill you. And he says, well, it must be a slow poison because I'm 80 now. So,
Well, so you'll be alert at the end.
You'll be, that's right.
Yeah.
So, but seriously, trust me, you are not the first person to tell the church how boring her services are, and how we must speak to the youth of the church. And the Protestant church down the street has got bands, and they got coffee shops, and they're singing barefoot on the stage and doing all kinds of really cool things.
Dancing with snakes at some places.
At some places, okay. So we've heard all of these things. You are not new in your criticism, but it ignores one important fact, and that fact is that the church is not here to serve the worship. The worship is not here to serve you. You are there to worship God. So you don't come to church so you can be entertained. You go to the movies to be entertained. You go skiing to be entertained. You go to Scotland to be entertained, okay? But you do not come to church to be entertained. So we as the Orthodox Church believe that many of those non-denominational churches have it wrong because they have acquiesced to the secular society, which has said, you have to cater to me. And the Orthodox Church has always been such that they said, no, you cater to our tradition. So when you come to church, you come because you, of your own free will, are giving 1.5 hours with sermon. All right, fine. You're giving of yourself 1.5 hours to worship He who provides all good things, He who has died for your salvation. So to think that it is boring is to say that I then am God and that I am not pleased. Change so that I may be pleased. And obviously this is wrong thinking, and the Orthodox Church will never support that. So it's just a frame of mind. In that case, it's literally a metania, a changing of the mind from what I want to what now the church wants.
And there is that fine line between this is something that encompasses all religions. There's a fine line between ritual and performance.
Yes, yeah. I mean, St. John Chrysostom himself said that the liturgy is not there to terrorize and to not annoy, but
instigate?
No, but more of like it's not there. It's not there, to cause you anguish and pain, but it is there for your salvation. So you're right. Even St. John Chrysostom said there's a balance between how much is too much and what should we worship. All right, but our liturgy is very comforting in the fact that how it's going to go. You know that you're going to hear the words in the epistle of St. Paul and of the other Catholic epistles. You're going to hear the words of Jesus Christ. You're going to praise God. You're going to receive communion. You know these things if you're in Russia, Romania, Ethiopia, Kansas, Alaska, Korea. When I was in Korea, you know what you're going to hear. There's a comfort in that I know what's going to happen, right?
Well, there's another aspect, too, that I think a lot of, when you enter a church, open your eyes. You're not going to be staring at the priest.
Yeah. Good point.
For an hour and a half. He leaves the altar for quite a number of times. That's why I've always found Orthodox churches and I'm biased here, but to be amongst the most appealing of the churches because there's so much art. That's actually it's also one of the challenges, but also one of the things that we've tried to incorporate into our live streams. That's why we cut away and show some of the icons, some of the stained glass windows, or even some of the candles or so forth. Not because it's boring, but because when you're in a church, you're naturally going to look around, and we want to replicate that experience. But the biggest challenge has been presenting these live streams in a natural, flowing way without it seeming like a stage production. I'm not live streaming a sporting event. Trust me, that's more exciting.
or a theater presentation, right? You're not
in church, like you said. You're not in church to be pleased. That. We live in a very entitled age. It's really true. This, and beyond the religion, it's an opportunity to meet with your community.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Well, and now it seems that we're developing a very strong online community. A community is still a community.
So the question is a great question, right? I mean, it needs to have an answer. A statement. The statement is good. It needs to have an answer.
All right. We're going to wrap up with one final question, which is a little bit more of a fun question, but contains spoilers for a recent film. So the film is the latest James Bond film, No Time to Die. Father has mentioned that he likes the Bond films, so if you haven't seen the film, you don't want it spoiled, we all hope you had a very, very good evening, and we'll see you next week. If you don't care, stick around. This question is from Joshua. You mentioned before, Father, that you really love the James Bond films. Mm-hmm. If you saw the new one, spoiler alert, how do you feel about them killing him off?
Well, I mean, James Bond eventually had to go. I mean, he was not gonna go quietly into the night. He was not MacArthur, all right? I mean, James Bond had to have just a glorious death, right? So I thought, okay, it's time to go. I thought they did a great job of introducing the new Bond, what we thought was the new Bond. She wasn't over the top. Right?
Oh, she's not gonna.
Okay, yeah. But I mean, I thought that's where it was going.
Yeah,
right? But I thought they did a great job of not sending her over the top. She was just right. So we went as a church group to go see it. And we were all getting up to go, and Demos is like, no. He's the theater. He's the movie guy. No, you got to stick around to the end. And we're like, we don't want to stick around to the end. It's boring. But he made us stick around, and the very last thing was, James Bond will return.
Every film ends with a variation of that, with the exception of 2, actually.
Okay, so 2 thoughts then. One is that somehow James Bond has survived, and he's coming back. And then the other one was what Demos told me, which I never thought of. What did you say, the reboot?
Yeah, the reboot. I mean, Daniel Craig was a reboot anyway. They didn't take any of the other films into consideration.
Oh, yeah. Well, so I guess for Spectre and...
they have references, but when Daniel Craig starts, the idea was that this is how he became 007. Sean Connery, all those adventures never happened.
Oh, okay, all right. But getting back to the original question, I loved it. I thought it was done excellent, and they really had to have a spectacular ending because all of the Bond films, I mean, you got to do something new. Anything other than him dying would have been okay. It's another Bond movie, it's kind of cool with the special effects, but this was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that this has actually happened, So I thought the movie was absolutely well done. I thought it was leading to a point, but then, Demos always has his alternate endings. So yeah, I would recommend it to anybody, just as I would the new one. Tom Cruise.
Oh, Top Gun.
Top Gun.
Maverick was awesome.
Everybody I've talked to just absolutely loves just a simple, fun movie.
Good time at the movies.
Good time in the movies.
No
political agenda, right?
Or it actually, to be honest, it's probably the most patriotic movie I've seen in God knows how long. But I disagree with you. I did not like the new Bond film. I honestly, from the very first moment, I felt like I was. I guess it's because of the title, and I've read the books, and I kind of had the idea that the film was going to end the way it did,
right?
Especially with the gun barrel at the beginning, where instead of the blood dripping, it faded to whites, fading it.
Oh, okay.
I started seeing some foreshadowing here and there, but I don't know. I felt like I was watching a funeral, and it's still to this day, it's the only Bond film I haven't bought because I just feel like.
Wow.
I feel like I'm watching a funeral when I watch it. These films are supposed to be escapism. The idea of James Bond, one of the biggest appeals of James Bond is, every man wants to be him, everyone wants to be with him. Of course, that's a very outdated idea nowadays, depending on who you talk to.
Sure.
But I mean, it's still a fantasy film at the end. So join us next week on the James Bond Hour. We'll be discussing Goldfinger versus Thunderball.
And the Orthodox implications of them becoming Orthodox.
Well, we can actually legitimately do an Orthodox review for our eyes only, since the entire ending takes place on Orthodox monastery.
Mm-hmm. All right. So again, hey, thanks everybody for watching. I know it's not the same as the live show, but we do think it's the next best thing, and we just want to make sure that we stay connected with all of you out there. And again, thanks for your questions. We really appreciate it
very much, and we'll see you all next week.